The mask. My brother came back from fishing with more than fish. The sun was going down, and the waves slapped against the shore like tired hands. He dragged his net up the sand, grinning, showing me the wriggling silver bodies inside. But mixed with the fish was something else. A small carved mask, old, cracked. The wood was dark and waterlogged, its eye holes hollow, like empty sockets. At first, we laughed. It didn't look valuable, just broken and strange. My brother held it up against his face, pretending to be a ghost. I threw a shell at him and told him to stop being stupid. We didn't think about where it came from, or why it was there, buried in the water. We just tossed it aside with the baskets and nets, like trash. That night, I woke to the sound of his bed shaking. The whole room rattled, the wooden legs banging against the floorboards. I thought he was having a nightmare. But when I touched him, his skin was cold and wet like he had just come out of the sea. His eyes snapped open. He grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. "Do you hear it?" he whispered. I didn't hear anything. The house was quiet except for the wind, but he was sweating and trembling. "The drums," he said. "They won't stop." I told him it was just a dream. I told him to sleep, but his face looked different, pale and pulled tight, like someone had stolen all the warmth from it. He turned his head toward the corner of the room, staring into the shadows, and for a second, I thought I saw the mask there, leaning against the wall, but when I blinked, it was gone. That night, I stayed awake while my brother thrashed in his bed. I could hear him mumbling words I didn't understand, low and guttural, like someone speaking underwater. Every few minutes, he would jerk violently, his arms flailing as though invisible hands were holding him down. I wanted to scream for help, but I was frozen. My parents were asleep at the far end of the house, and even if they woke, they wouldn't know what to do. By dawn, he finally collapsed into exhausted silence. I checked the floor. The mask was gone. I asked him where it was, but he didn't answer. He just stared at the ceiling with eyes wide and blank, like he had been looking at something no one else could see. That morning, he refused to go fishing. He stayed in his room, silent, pale, trembling every time the wind moved outside the window. I decided to hide the mask. I searched the place where we had thrown it after the net, and under the floorboards, I found it. Its carved eyes seemed to glint in the weak morning light. It looked small, harmless, but there was something in the hollow sockets that made me shiver. I wrapped it in an old cloth and stuffed it into the back of the cupboard, hoping that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That night, the drums came. First faint, just the soft beat of a hand against a hollow log, echoing through the walls. I thought maybe it was my brother again, moving in his sleep, but the sound grew louder, a rhythm, steady and deliberate, filling every corner of the house. My brother woke screaming, clawing at the air, hitting the walls. "It's coming! It's coming for me!" he yelled. I tried to calm him, but his words made no sense. He kept pointing toward the cupboard where I had hidden the mask. I hesitated, then slowly pulled it out. The moment I held it, the room went still. The drum stopped. My brother's body slumped forward, and he whispered, barely audible, don't let it see you." I didn't understand what he meant. I only knew the mask was dangerous. It was alive somehow, though it didn't move. The air around it felt thick, heavy, like it carried the smell of water and earth and something older than the world. Over the next few days, things changed. My brother couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep without shaking violently. And sometimes, when he stared at the mask, his face would twist, half in fear, half in recognition, like he remembered something terrible. At night, I would hear the drums again, faint like a warning. I tried to wake my parents, but they would hear nothing. Only my brother and I could hear it. I began to watch him constantly. I noticed small things I hadn't before. How he avoided the corners of the room, how he flinched at shadows, how his dreams sounded like a language I couldn't understand. I started to feel it too, the pull of the mask. When I touched it, I felt a vibration, as though tiny drums were beating inside the wood. I wanted to put it away, burn it, throw it in the river, but I was scared that whatever it was, it wouldn't let me. And then it happened. One evening, while I sat by the fire, my brother's voice came from his room, louder than ever. "It's calling me. It wants me." He ran past me, bare feet slapping the wooden floor, eyes wide and wild. I followed, and I saw him standing in the center of the room, holding the mask above his head like he was offering it to the ceiling. His body shook so violently, I thought he would break in half. And then the drum started, not from the mask, nor from him. From inside my head, a low rolling beat like the echo of a storm in the distance. It filled my ears and chest, vibrating through every bone. I couldn't move. My brother fell to the floor, convulsing, eyes rolled back, mouth open in a scream that went on forever. And then, silence. When I woke, he was asleep. The mask was gone. I don't know how. I looked everywhere. The cupboard, the floorboards, even outside. Nothing. But the drums. They never really stopped. Sometimes at night, I still hear them, faint, like a warning. I don't know where the mask went. I don't know if it's waiting or if it will come back. But I do know this. My brother will never be the same. And I have learned one thing. Too late. Some things you catch in nets aren't fish. Some things are older, hungrier, and they do not forgive. The days after that were worse. My brother barely spoke. He would sit in the corner of the room, staring at the wall, eyes fixed on some point I couldn't see. I tried to take him outside, to fish, to walk on the sand, to talk about anything. But he would flinch at every shadow, every sudden sound. The mask had marked him, and I began to realize it might have marked me too. One morning, I found him in the kitchen, dripping sweat, muttering under his breath. His hands were shaking so badly that he could not hold a cup of water. "They're coming," he whispered. "They are waiting." I asked him who, but he didn't answer. His eyes rolled back into his head, and for a moment, I thought he had died. Then he dropped to the floor, gasping, and the walls seemed to hum with the terrible steady rhythm again. The drums. I decided I had to learn something about the mask. I took a torch and went down to the storage shed, searching for anything that could give me a clue. Old books, scraps of paper, forgotten trinkets. Then I found it. A small water-damaged notebook, written in a language I didn't recognize, but the drawings were clear. The mask, figures dancing around it, hands offering it to the sky, and the drums. The pages smelled of damp wood and smoke, and the sketches made me feel dizzy, like I was seeing something alive. That night, the drums started again. I could hear them from the kitchen, from the living room, even outside. My brother screamed as he ran to me. "It's here. It wants me. Don't touch it." He pointed toward the cupboard, his finger trembling. I froze. My hand itched to look inside to see if the mask had returned, but I didn't. Instead, I watched him collapse into the floor, shaking and crying. I tried to carry him to bed, but he fought me, screaming words I couldn't understand. The next morning, He didn't remember anything. Not the screaming, not the drums, not the terror. Only the exhaustion in his eyes. The hollow look of someone who has seen too much. But I remembered, and I knew the mask was not gone. It had only moved. I could feel it like a shadow in the air, like a pulse beneath my skin. Days turned into nights, and the drums became louder. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I would sit in the dark, listening, heart pounding, waiting for something I could not name. Every night, the mask appeared in different places, on the porch, by the water, leaning against a tree. And every night, my brother's body would jerk, convulse, trembling as if he were trying to escape invisible chains. I tried everything I could think of. I buried the mask deep in the sand, thinking the ocean would take it away. I tried to burn it, but the fire would not catch. It was wet, yes, but even soaked, it resisted. The flames refused it, leaving it charred and smoldering but whole. And each time I failed, the drums came louder. One evening, I heard voices outside, low murmurs, whispering in a language I did not know. I looked through the window and saw a group of figures standing by the shore, cloaked in shadows. They didn't move, didn't speak to me, but I could see their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They were carrying torches, but they made no sound except for the drums and the mask. It floated between them, small, carved eyes shining, moving as though alive. I ran to my brother, grabbed him, and we fled into the woods behind our house. The drums followed. They bounced between the trees, wrapped around our skulls, pushing us forward. We ran without stopping, branches tearing at our skin, hearts hammering. My brother screamed, calling the mask by name. I didn't understand, but I could feel it, the hunger in the air, the way the shadows stretched toward us. We hid in a hollow under a giant tree, breathing hard, soaked in sweat and blood from scratches. For hours, we stayed still, listening. The drums finally faded, leaving only silence, heavy and wet. My brother whispered, "It wants us to know it is stronger." And I realized it was true. The mask was not just a mask. It was something older than anything I had ever known. Something that came from the water, from the earth, from a place beyond human memory. It was alive, and it was patient, and we were its prey. It was a week later when I realized the mask had a history. I went to the village, quietly asking the elders, careful not to reveal too much. Most looked away, shaking their heads. One, an old woman with skin like cracked leather and eyes like dark pools, finally spoke. She told me of masks like mine, carved by men who had gone too far into the rivers and forests, men who wanted power no one should have. She whispered that the masks were alive, that they remembered every hand that touched them, every fear they encountered. "They are hungry," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "They are old. They do not forget. If it has chosen your brother, it will not stop until it has finished its work." I left her house trembling. Her words made the fear I felt crawl up my spine like icy fingers. I returned home, trying to watch my brother, trying to protect him, but it was useless. The mask had already claimed him. That night, the drums began again, louder, pounding in our bones, vibrating through the walls. My brother screamed in the dark, trying to run, but the room itself seemed to stretch and warp, trapping him. I could feel it too. The mask's presence wrapped around my mind, teasing thoughts, whispering words I did not know. Sleep became impossible. Every shadow was a threat. Every gust of wind carried a message I could not understand. I began to see things, fleeting figures moving in the corners of my eyes. Sometimes I thought I heard voices, chanting in the same strange language my brother had muttered in. I told myself I was imagining it. but I knew I wasn't. One night, unable to endure the terror anymore, I followed him. My brother had slipped from the house, carrying the mask as if it were his most precious possession. He walked toward the river, barefoot, silent, eyes glazed and unseeing of the real world. The drums grew louder, faster, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat, or maybe commanding it. I called his name, and he stopped, staring at me with eyes that weren't his own. They were darker, hollowed, full of shadows that seemed to reach out and touch my soul. "You shouldn't have it," he said, voice deep and strange, as if more than one voice spoke through him. "It belongs to the river, to the water, to the old ones." Before I could react, the mask leapt from his hands. Not literally. I could feel it flying through the air in a way that made no sense, landing in the river with a splash that sent waves outward like the pulse of a heart. The drum stopped instantly. Silence pressed down, heavy and suffocating. My brother collapsed to the ground, unconscious, body shaking even after the drums were gone. I carried him home, terrified, exhausted, knowing that the mask was still out there. The river would not keep it. It would return, and when it did, nothing would be the same. The next days were quieter, almost peaceful. My brother slept long stretches, and I hoped the mask's influence had ended. But the nights brought whispers, faint but unmistakable, carried on the wind. I could hear faint drum beats echoing from the riverbanks. And once, when I looked into the water at dawn, I thought I saw the mask floating just beneath the surface, eyes glinting like they knew I was watching. Weeks passed. My brother recovered physically, but his mind remained fragile. He avoided water entirely, refused to fish, and stared often at shadows as if expecting something to emerge. I tried to put it out of my mind. I told myself it was just fear, that the mask was gone, that the world was safe again. But deep inside, I knew better. The mask had chosen, and its hunger was patient. The nights that followed became unbearable. The drums returned, faint at first, then growing louder, filling the room, vibrating through the walls, the floor, and our bones. My brother would wake screaming, shaking violently, sometimes clawing at the air as if trying to fend off invisible hands. I stayed by his side, holding him down, whispering anything I could think of to keep him from running out into the darkness, but nothing worked. One night, I could no longer tell if it was my imagination or reality. The shadows in the room twisted and stretched, moving on their own. The mask appeared everywhere, in the corner of my eye, floating above the bed, staring at us from the doorway. I felt its presence inside my own mind, whispering secrets, calling my name, urging me to touch it, and I knew if I ever did, I would be lost. My brother began speaking in that strange language again, words that were not his, chants that rolled like thunder, shaking the walls. The drums were no longer outside, they were inside us, inside me, pounding in my chest, making my heart skip and my head spin. I tried to cover my ears, to block it out, but it was impossible. The mask's power had grown. It had learned, adapted, and was relentless. I realized then that we could not fight it with fire or water. We could not hide it or bury it. It existed beyond those things. It was patience and hunger, waiting and knowing, and we were its prey. The following night, I woke to silence, a false calm that made my blood run cold. My brother was gone. The bed was empty, and the room was untouched. I called his name until my voice cracked. I ran through the house, the yard, the edge of the forest, shouting into the dark. And then I saw it, the mask floating above the river, glowing faintly. in the moonlight, eyes like twin fires. My brother stood beneath it, still, hands raised as if in worship, eyes empty, and a small satisfied smile on his face. I tried to reach him, but I could not move. My feet were rooted, my mind heavy with terror. The drums began again, not a sound, but a vibration through the air, the water, the earth. The mask pulsed, and my brother's body convulsed in time with it, perfectly synchronized, as if the two were one. And then the river swallowed them both. The mask vanished beneath the surface, and my brother's scream echoed once, faint, high, and impossible, before silence fell like a tomb. I ran home, broken, shaking, unable to comprehend what had happened. Days passed, but the fear never left. I avoided the river, avoided shadows, and watched the water from a distance, knowing it carried the mask's hunger. I began to hear the drums in my sleep, faint at first, then steadily, a promise that it was waiting, that it would return. I tell this story now because I have no choice. I am the last one who saw him, the last one who knows the truth. The mask is real, it is patient, it does not forget, and one day it will come for me too. When it does, I will not run, I will not fight, I will only listen to the drums and wait for what is coming, knowing that nothing can stop it. The river is calm now, the sun shines, the world seems ordinary, but the drums are always there, faint under the wind, under the waves, under my heartbeat, and I know they will grow louder. One day they will call, and when they do, the mask will rise again, and then nothing will ever be the same.